Seaman, you and Swallow go get us sushi for dinner.
It's Sea, Man, and Swallow.
Okay, Seaman, you guys head off.
Fine.
Swallow, come!
Picture for a moment you're in a shady area. You know, the kind that causes you to lock the doors of your car. As you're driving through this rundown neighborhood, passing by one derelict house after another, you suddenly come across one home that just seems out of place. A better paint job, nice car in the driveway, the whole 9 yards.
What's up, MTV?
You'd likely think to yourself, well, this family clearly won the lottery because there's no reason for someone in this neck of the woods to have this kind of cash. Well, that's the general feeling one might get when looking at the trash heap that is the DCEU, and the outlier that is 2018's Aquaman, a film that had no business grossing over $1 billion, but somehow did. The first Aquaman film represents one of the most baffling achievements of the last 5 years in terms of financial windfall, in the face of unfathomable odds.
We need to put some hold-on maneuvers, do some real damage.
Come on, that move is 1 in a million.
A little over a year removed from the abysmal failure that was the Justice League, Aquaman was set up to be a complete flop. I mean, here was possibly the least popular of DC's core characters, headlining his own film immediately following one of the biggest critical and commercial disasters of all time. But after $1.152 billion, a large chunk of which likely came from thirsty, neglected housewives, it became not only the highest grossing installment of the DCEU, the highest grossing film based on any DC character ever, and Warner Brothers' second highest grossing film worldwide behind Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. As a result of its surprising success, Warner Brothers began immediately developing a sequel, Aquaman: The Lost Kingdom. But how does Aquaman 2 hold up compared to the first one? And is it even worth your time? Let's take a look. Picking up a couple of years after the events of the first film. Oh, and if you don't remember, don't worry, they'll remind you. They will constantly remind you.
4 years ago, I was basically unemployed.
Arthur has taken his rightful place on the throne of Atlantis. Alongside his wife Mira, he has settled into a life of duality. Half of his time is spent managing subaquatic bureaucracy and politics, while the rest is doing what he'd much rather do: be a dad. Meanwhile, somewhere else in the vast ocean, David Kane searches for Atlantean tech in order to exact revenge on the King of the Seven Seas. In their search, he and his crew of extremely expendable expeditionaries stumble upon the lost kingdom of Necris, a forgotten land of death and evil which is protected by a hentai lover's dream. It is here that Black Manta finds the Black Trident, an object of great and terrible might, which not only empowers its wielder with strength beyond that which they previously knew, but also corrupts their mind. 5 months pass and the world is experiencing unprecedented levels of increasingly destructive climate change, ranging from flooding to thundersnows to even increased ocean acidity, or as I like to call it, February in New Jersey. As it turns out, Manta and his crew have spent the better half of the last year raiding Atlantean storage facilities for orichalcum, an ancient element which has not seen the light of day for centuries due to its destructive side effects on the environment. Using it to power Necrusian technology, Manta and his forces intend to free Kordax, the once power-hungry brother of King Atlan who was imprisoned at the hands of Atlantean blood magic. Along with his army of deep-sea monsters, they plan to bring down Atlantis once and for all and rule the ocean with an iron fin. Realizing that he's outmatched and severely outsmarted by his foes, Arthur is forced to turn to the last person in the world he'd ever want for help: his brother, the Ocean Master Orm. But will their unlikely partnership be enough to stop the combined forces of their evil ancestor and a galvanized Black Manta? Or is it too little too late for the franchise? I mean world. On the surface, this story is pretty bare bones. Bad guy gets the MacGuffin, which gives him the strength to overpower the good guy, and the good guy needs to seek the help of the old bad guy to beat the current bad guy. It's a story we have all seen before in one form or another. But there's a reason why certain things become cliches, and that's because they work as narrative devices. Would it have hurt for them to be more original? No. But in the same token, can you really blame them for going generic considering what's happening with this franchise? As a film itself, all I can really say is that it's far from the worst superhero movie I've seen this year, and might even be one of the best in the DCEU, whatever that's worth. With a strong theme throughout about the importance of fatherhood and the bond of blood, it's a welcome change of pace from the consistent man-bashing that has become the unfortunate norm of Hollywood. At times it could afford to dial back on the comedy, but it is aware of the silliness of the character and does its best to balance the serious from the sarcastic, to varying degrees of success. Jason Momoa, of course, reprises his role as the King of the Seven Seas, which is actually one he seems to truly enjoy. Which is nice to see, as most of the time actors in these superhero roles either take it for the payday, exposure, or possibly because someone's holding their family hostage. One thing that continues to amaze me about Momoa is that despite him being a muscle muscle-bound Adonis of a man, he has a genuine everyman feel that makes you just want to go have a beer with him. With the Lost Kingdom, he's mostly enjoyable in the role, though I won't lie, I do wish he'd pull the reins on the silliness from time to time, as he ends up falling into the standard comic book movie tropes. Patrick Wilson seems to have found himself in the ill-fated position of perpetually being the best actor in underwhelming films. He has an uncanny ability of being able to flip between serious and sarcastic convincingly without devaluing either side of the coin. It's no wonder he's maintained his status as one of the most underrated actors in Hollywood, often giving the best performance in underperforming films. Here with his expanded presence, he's able to play off of Momoa in a way I personally didn't expect to work, but strangely does. Seeing as how Ocean Master has officially fish-flopped to the other side, his role as the primary antagonist needed to be filled. Stepping up to the plate as a pinch hitter is Yahya Abdul-Mateen returning as African-American Manta. I know that's not what he's listed as in the credits, but I'll be damned if I'm gonna get canceled over this shit. He plays the character pretty much the same as the first film, but with the added caveat of slowly being driven mad, which only serves to make him even more menacing. I don't really have anything bad to say about his performance. Honestly, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of it. With the absence of Willem Dafoe, the door was opened for more screen time with other characters, and likely the one who benefited the most from this was Nicole Kidman, reprising her role as the Queen Mother Atlana, a character she is obviously not connected with, as she fits the role as well as the critical drinker does in a dry county. I'm not sure if it's due to not understanding the source material very well, or simply not caring enough to learn it. Also, Dolph Lundgren is still getting work, so like, good for you, man. Not again. Hello? I really think it's just best to skip over her for this review, as she's proven ratings poison. Okay, but don't blame me when this review shits the bed. I guess I need to talk about Amber Heard and her contributions or lack thereof to this film. There isn't actually much to say, as about 20 minutes in, she's sidelined in favor of less crappy characters. Since they were contractually obligated here to have her as a floater, her role was flushed away to the bare minimum. I guess it was better than discharging her and dealing with the fecal matters. Best thing I could say is that she's not a really big distraction when she's on screen.
Distraction!
Whereas many recent comic book films have often felt saddled with the dreaded slow pacing and feel like they're being dragged out to pad their runtimes, you almost get the sense from The Lost Kingdom that they just want it to be over with.
Come on, get it over with and then let me go, okay?
Just north of 2 hours, it doesn't drag out scenes longer than they're welcome, and is fairly efficient with its time. Though seriously, they could have scrapped that opening montage and monologue cataloging the events of the first film. It's only been 5 years, guys, and movies are more accessible than ever. Just try and trust your audience a little bit. Also, I don't normally do this gag for this long, so maybe I should stop. But simply trimming the exposition would have knocked the runtime down below 120 minutes, which would have been ideal. To say that the production cycles of the DC films have been complicated would be like calling the ocean a bit damp. On top of the consistent chaos that has been the DCEU for all of its existence, this one had several other issues to contend with. For starters, with the complete turnover at Warner Brothers, nearly every project in the works was either cancelled, altered, or made irrelevant by the announcement that the series was being scrapped in favor of the new regime's vision. Coupled with Amber Heard's defamation trial in 2022, we're left with a perfect shitstorm of inconsequentiality, which leaves the film in the unenviable spot of being the end of an era that no one cares about any longer. Which of course is translating into bombing on levels similar to, well, every other DCEU film this year. As for how it looks, well, it's a cavalcade of computer-generated crustaceans, inauthentic invertebrates, and phony fish that do very little to captivate. I guess considering that the majority of the film takes place underwater, there's really no other choice than to have your eyes bombarded by bogus barracudas. Though I would suspect it looks good in 3D if that's your thing. But I really wish they could have at least worked a few more practical effects into this deep-sea venture. So is Aquaman the Lost Kingdom any good? Surprisingly, yes. It's not going to be winning any awards, and no one's going to put this script up on a pedestal as a crowning achievement of originality, but somehow twice, Aquaman in one way or another has successfully swam upstream. With generally solid acting, a plot that isn't a convoluted mess, and a rather refreshing theme about how fatherhood matters, I can honestly say that this is one of the more enjoyable films I've seen recently, though I may be prisoner of the moment due to Rebel Moon. Combined with the unexpected results of the first film, I'm left with the strange realization that in the end, Aquaman somehow works on the big screen. Had this come out at a different time, I could easily see it having been a massive hit.
I could have been a contender.
And if that's not enough to convince you that the swan song of the DCEU might be worth just a little bit of your time, then I'm not sure anything I could possibly say would do the trick.